everybody. Really grateful that you all turned up, because I kind of felt as the first non-academic that I can remember you might give it a miss. So I'm very grateful for you guys turning up. As Chris said, I'm Perry, I'm the commercial director of the Bodleian. Some of these are my own books, because the Bodleian doesn't actually have them, which is an interesting fact in its own right, in terms of covers. So I'm talking about Everyman Library. You may well be familiar with it, because it looks like this now. Beautiful gift books, really lovely put together, owned by Penguin Random House now. I'm not talking about these, I'm talking about how the library started, which, as it happens, was exactly 120 years ago, February 1906. And there's several anniversaries, because the guy who set it up, Joseph Malaby Dent, died exactly 100 years ago. And his brilliant editor, Ernest Rees, died 80 years ago. So one of the reasons that it got set up was back in the late 19th, early 20th century, various copyright changes happened. Huge tranches of very popular Victorian authors were suddenly available. So publishers being publishers, they all piled in. They all launched their own classic series back then. So you had Oxford, Collins, Methuen, Heinemann, they all went for it. None were quite as ambitious as Dent, though, I should say. And Dent was an interesting guy. He was a absolutely working class, self-made man. He was born in Darlington, one of 10 kids. He left school at 13, turned up in London with £half a crown in his pocket in the 1890s. Half a crown, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, is about 25 pence. And he became a bookbinder, he became a printer, then he became a publisher, and he became a very successful publisher, running Dent. And by the time it got to 1904, 1905, he was sitting on quite a lot of money. And he didn't decide to buy a holiday home, didn't decide to retire. He wanted to do something that had been in the back of his mind for a long time. He wanted to publish classic literature that everyone could afford. So as he said he wanted to publish new and beautiful editions of the world's classics at 1 shilling a volume. That's 5 pence, by the way. To appeal to every kind of reader, the worker, the student, the cultured man, the child, the man, the woman, so that for a few shillings the reader may have a whole bookshelf of the immortals, and for £5, which will get him 100 volumes, a man may be intellectually rich for life. So, wonderful venture, in my opinion. They started in February 1906, and him and Ernest Rees were men with a mission, because they released 50 volumes in February, and by the end of that year, they released 150 volumes. And they were all numerically numbered, so 1 to 150. They were cheap, but they were actually of really, really good quality. The original ones, which are on the far left side there, they're flatback style. They've got gold leaf on the edge, so they still look like this 120 years later. And in order to make profit, selling for a shilling, they had to print 10,000 of every volume, which back then was quite a risk for a publisher, especially if you think that was at least nearly 1.5 million books they printed in that first year just to get themselves started. So it's a big undertaking. Fortunately, it was immediately successful. He immediately, knowing he couldn't cope with normal printers, he set up his own printing press in Letchworth Garden Village, and they then did nothing but Everymans for the next 70 years. Quite amazing. By World War I, they published 700 volumes, and the original jackets, as I say, are the ones with the gilt edges. The original bindings with the gilt edges. The original jackets look like this. They were in red like this, very cheap, covered in advertising, and designed to be thrown away. So this is one of mine. You can see it's in pretty poor condition. It's covered in sellotape. The top's gone because that's where people would pull it off the shelf. But back then, up to the First World War, please correct me, librarians, the Bodleian, when they got a book with a jacket, they would quite often slightly trim it down, fold it up, and stick it in the back of the book. So we've got some examples there of the jackets in absolutely mint condition. And when I saw those, honestly, my heart sank. I've never seen anything like it. Absolutely amazing. I can't have them, but I can look at them. But amazing, because you just don't see them in that kind of condition. As I said, they're designed to be thrown away. The interior design, actually, like this, was very much based on William Morris and the Kelmscott Press. And of course, it had the Everyman a verse in it from the mystery play, which still appears in the very modern editions as well. So every Everyman that's ever been printed has that verse in the book somewhere. The first 2 volumes they released was Johnson's Life of Boswell, volume 1 and 2. And by 1927, they had gotten themselves up to 800 volumes. They'd also then changed the binding style to be the second one here. They lost the gilt edge. During the First World War, because of the economy, costs, etc., etc., the gold went, and they started using cheaper stuff, so it ends up looking like this, almost illegible. So changing the binding was a sensible idea in 1928, and they also changed the cover to look like this, which obviously we don't have these covers because we would have binned them all at the time. So these are my own books. So the cover went from the sundial, which was their first iteration, to the lighthouse, and on they continued. So by 1932, they were up to 900 volumes, and they changed the jacket style again to be this third iteration here, and that's when they got hold of Eric Revilius to design the Revilius knot, which was a great thing to do. And they kept to this jacket style for the next 20 odd years. It was, as I say, designed by Eric Revilius. They had all, by this time, the library was split into 13 sections: fiction, biography, kids, classics, poetry, plays, etc., etc. All color-coded. Each one in the book had its own Revilius designed colophon. So pretty amazing. And I think Alan Lane was taking notes, because when Penguin started in 1936, he basically copied it wholesale. Numbering, color coding, sections, he just put them in paperback. So amazing stuff. They did really, really well. This design, this size, this is slightly smaller. Those of you who've ever been in publishing, this is slightly smaller than an A format paperback, which is the general paperback size. It was designed to go in people's pockets because Joseph thought that people who were buying a shilling would want to carry it around with them, so stick it in your pocket. This one lasted to 1954, by which time they got to number 991. Now, unfortunately for me, because I'm collecting these, 992 to 1000 looks like this, which you will notice is bigger. This is slightly smaller than the B format, and those 4 books there, well, these ones here, I can't see the ones. These ones here are the larger format books. So 992 to 1000 is only available in the large format. Number 1000 was Aristotle's Metaphysics. It was released in 1956, so they got to the 1000th volume in 50 years. Well done them. They carried on numbering the books until 1982, still in this large format. You may recognise it. Actually, I didn't bring one with me, but they lost this spine and they had an anchor on the spine, and that anchor on the spine is really, really common. You see it everywhere. The smaller format ones are slightly more rare. So that's a potted history of the publishing venture. I was going to talk a little bit about why I collect them. I think the first instance was because I think it was a fantastic thing to do, to try and get all of this amazing literature out cheaply in quality editions to everyone. It's very much the Western canon, of course. I think the second thing is they're cheap. As a collector, there's no point me going for medieval manuscripts, is there? I mean, they are cheap. Although, as you get into the rarer volumes, and I'll talk about rarities in a minute, you can pay a lot of money for them, especially, and condition is everything, as we all know. But, you can pretty much find them everywhere. Between 1906 and 56, 50 million were sold. They always had American distribution. They had to deal with Dutton, which are actually on the spine too, from 1906. So they're actually more in America than there are here. They're also all over the old Empire, Commonwealth. You find them. I have bought them everywhere in the world. You can find them everywhere. And that's the other thing. You can go into almost any Oxfam bookshop. There will be one of these on the shelf somewhere. They are everywhere. And I was just speaking to a lady there. She's got you probably all got 1 or 2 of these books at home because they are ubiquitous, which is wonderful. So very easy to start collecting them. There are rarities. And there are rarities. I said they always printed 10,000. They didn't always print 10,000, and because of the peculiar way they printed and bound them, you just don't know sometimes how many are out there. So there are rarities. We've got some over there which have been owned and signed by Louis MacNeice. And because they were so ubiquitous in the first half of the 20th century, loads of celebrities owned them, and there's a separate collecting sort of subsect of people who just collect them with famous names written in the front. The most famous, of course, is the Taylor Burton collection. Burton was a massive fan of Everyman Library. Back in the early 60s, Elizabeth Taylor bought him the entire 1,000 volumes, and of course had them bound in pink suede. I would love to find one of these. When Burton died, a lot of his stuff was sold off for charity by his widow, and 3 antiquarian booksellers basically bought the 1,000 between them. Then they sold them off individually to people who weren't necessarily book collectors but wanted a bit of the Burton-Taylor legacy. So they're still out there somewhere, and if one ever comes up, I will definitely go for it. The Montcalm Wolf, which is 331 and 332, are regarded as the rarest 2 volumes. They are over there. And you can find them. They were rare because they were still in copyright. Oops. So when they released them in 1908, they had to withdraw them all. So they're the rarest. But you don't always know how rare things are until you actually find them. As I said, they did leather editions. Sometimes they did them, they actually released like the whole set of Dickens, the whole set of Scott in lovely leather collections and so on. What I hadn't seen until I bought it, because I hadn't seen it before, this is Montcalm Wolf in leather. So if you think it's rare in the normal binding, well, this is the only set I've seen in leather, and they were in absolutely perfect condition, which is pretty rare. So that was fantastic. Other rarities are things like this, where they've done a film tie-in wraparound. So obviously the collector has to have this and this, obviously. And there are other various things. You get wartime wraparounds, lots of things which make it slightly different from the normal run-of-the-mill stuff. That's about it. I haven't really discussed ephemera. That's another sublet. Bookmarks, catalogues, the Everyman Journal, some stuff from the archive, which is in the University of North Carolina, which you can access. We've got some stuff from the John Johnson collection as well, which is really, really good. And I'll just finish with this, because I really love this. This is a Dictionary of Dates, number 554, and this was printed in 1940, it's got a wartime wraparound explaining the fact they've had to put the price up to 2 and 6 because it was at 2 shillings. And on the back it says, over 30 million Everyman volumes have been sold and distributed in every corner of the world. All the destruction by wars, all the bombings and bannings of books cannot wipe them out. The demand for them since the outbreak of war is greater than ever. Which I think is pretty wonderful, actually. My final thing, I'm going to recruit you all now. I've got 999. So, now I need it in the small format because it's very common in the large format. Number 865, The Mysteries of Udolpho, Volume 1 by Anne Radcliffe, is the one that eludes me. So I hope you'll take note of that when you're walking around Oxford bookshops. If you spot it, I will buy it off you for a fair price. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Perry. And we must have gaps in our collection.
I think you do. Well, other than the covers, I think you do. There's, although most of the books I asked for, you did actually have. You even had some of the more obscure stuff, like the Bookseller's Guide to Everyman, which is designed for booksellers. All that's in there is the number and the title and so on. And you had a number of the other ones, like a Guide to Temple Press, Walter Delamere's Introduction, that kind of stuff. So you did have most of them, in actual fact.
But the gaps that we have, you presumably have copies.
I have a few, yes.
Just saying.
But bear that in mind.
Okay, I have one little favour to ask you. Could you read the verse that
Yes, of course.
goes through every version?
Of course. So the verse is, and this, as I said, it was in the very first one, and it's even in the later editions now. Every man, I will go with thee, and be thy guide, in thy most need, to go by thy side.
And I just had a little coda to Perry's talk, which is that that is from the late 15th century morality play called Everyman, which does not survive in any printed, any manuscript source, and very few printed sources. Complete printed source is an edition by John Scott, and the earlier ones, which are very important to scholars, only exist in fragments fragments at the BL and fragments here. And these were printed by Richard Pinson, the King's printer, probably around about 1528. And I just thought I would have it here. It's a nice,
Thank you.
early and late.
Absolutely.
And in your honour, Perry.
Thank you very much.
Do come and have a closer look, but first another round of applause.
Thank you.